Insulin resistance doesn't always look the same in men and women, and that's one of the reasons why it often gets missed. The signs can be subtle. They can be brushed off as normal, or they can be blamed on age or stress. But here's the truth. Insulin resistance is one of the most important things to catch early because it's at the root of so many modern problems. Weight gain, fatigue, low testosterone, PCOS, and of course, type 2 diabetes. But here's the catch. The hidden signs can show up differently depending on if you're a woman or a man. Women often see one set of symptoms, while men see something completely different. And if you don't know what to look out for, you might miss the early warning signs your body is trying to give you. So in today's video, I'm going to break down the hidden signs of insulin resistance for women and for men. And we'll also talk about the overlap, because of course there is some. But most importantly, we're going to talk about what you can do if you recognize these signs in yourself. And the reason you need to look out for these signs is because insulin resistance doesn't show up in a standard blood test. Insulin levels can be elevated 5, 10, even 15 years before blood sugar levels start to go up. But because insulin isn't routinely tested, this gets missed. Until, of course, it progresses to prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. But if you catch it early, you can stop it in its tracks. If you're new here, my name's Kait, and I'm a nutritionist who specializes in insulin resistance and blood sugar control. Over the years, I have helped hundreds of both women and men reverse insulin resistance naturally. And one of the biggest challenges I see is the signs are often overlooked or misunderstood. And that's what inspired today's video. Now, like I touched on briefly before, insulin resistance doesn't just happen overnight. It builds up slowly, often over years, as your body produces more and more insulin to try to keep blood sugar under control. At first, you won't notice it much. Then you start to get some small signs. Low energy here, a little weight gain there. Maybe your cycle is irregular. Maybe you see changes in your sleep. The problem is that most people don't connect the dots back to insulin. They blame themselves, or they think that it's just age. They go years before they get their insulin levels tested. And for some people, they never get it tested. And that's why this conversation matters so much. The earlier you recognize the signs, the faster and easier it is to reverse insulin resistance. If you can identify it when symptoms are still subtle, you can completely turn your health around before it turns into diabetes or other serious issues. So let's start with women. Women's bodies respond to insulin resistance differently because of estrogen and progesterone. That means the signs can look completely different than they do in men. One of the biggest hidden signs and often misunderstood signs is PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. PCOS is one of the most common hormonal conditions in women of reproductive age, and it is fundamentally driven by insulin resistance. High insulin disrupts the ovaries, leading to irregular or absent periods, infertility struggles, excess hair growth, and sometimes even hair loss on the head. If you've been told you have PCOS, you almost certainly have insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the root cause of 90% of PCOS cases. There are some outliers, but the vast majority are caused by insulin resistance. Another sign is stubborn weight gain, especially belly fat that won't budge, or weight that piles on around the hips and thighs. Women will often say, I'm eating clean, I'm exercising, I'm doing everything right, but the scale won't move. That's because as long as insulin's high, fat loss is basically locked. Then there are the skin changes. Dark, velvety patches on the neck or underarms. This is a classic insulin resistance sign. And skin tags, particularly clusters around the neck, chest, or armpits, are another. And then there's acne. Adult acne around the chin and jawline. That's often insulin resistance disrupting other hormones. Energy swings are another big one. So many women I know always need to have a high carb or high sugar snack on hand. They complain about their blood sugar dropping too low. But this is actually a bit of a rebound effect. Afternoon crashes, irritability if you go too long without food, or feeling shaky between meals. Those are all blood sugar roller coasters, not just you being moody. The frustrating part is these signs often get brushed off. Sometimes they even get blamed on where we are in our cycle, which, don't get me wrong, that can absolutely have an effect on your hormones, on your mood, on your energy. But a lot of times these signs come down to insulin resistance. Now let's talk about men, because the picture here is very different. The most obvious sign is belly fat and hard belly fat. Men with insulin resistance tend to develop the classic dad bod, thin arms and legs, but a growing belly. This is visceral fat, accumulating around the organs. And this fat is metabolically active. It pumps out inflammatory chemicals that make insulin resistance even worse. Another sign is low testosterone. Now, this one really varies from women to men because for women, insulin resistance causes testosterone to go up. That is a key symptom of PCOS. But for men, it causes it to go down. Insulin resistance lowers testosterone production in men. And this lower testosterone leads to fatigue, low sex drive, mood swings, and muscle loss. This often gets blamed on aging, but in reality, insulin is driving testosterone down. And then there's man boobs. Elevated insulin disrupts the balance between testosterone and estrogen. That hormonal imbalance can cause fat to deposit in the chest. It's something most men don't want to talk about, but it's a clear sign insulin resistance is at play. Another common symptom is constant fatigue and brain fog. Some men will rely on caffeine or sugar to get them through the afternoon slump, but it's actually a symptom of poor blood sugar regulation, not a lack of willpower. And just like women, men can develop those dark patches of skin and skin tags. Again, they're not just cosmetic, they're a metabolic warning sign. The hard part with men is that these signs often show up gradually. You don't go from lean to insulin resistant overnight. The belly grows slowly, the energy dips become normal, the muscle mass fades year by year, and because it's gradual, most men think it's just aging. But it's really insulin resistance silently progressing in the background. Now, of course, we've mentioned a few of the overlapping signs. These include sugar or carb cravings that feel impossible to control, feeling tired or sleepy after meals, constant hunger even when you've eaten plenty, and changes in blood pressure or cholesterol levels. These are universal red flags of insulin resistance. They tell us that the body is struggling to regulate glucose properly, and they shouldn't be ignored. So why does insulin resistance show up differently in men and women? Well, it comes down to hormones. Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone all influence how your body stores fat, how sensitive your cells are to insulin, and which symptoms show up first. In women, estrogen and progesterone are directly disrupted by high insulin. So the first signs often show up in your reproductive system: irregular cycles, PCOS, acne, and even infertility. In men, insulin resistance lowers testosterone, so the signs show up in body composition: more belly fat, less muscle, low libido, and fatigue. So even though the symptoms can look different, the underlying cause is the same: insulin resistance. Now, if you recognize yourself in any of these signs, don't panic. Insulin resistance is not a life sentence, it is reversible. And the first step is awareness. Connecting the dots between your symptoms and insulin. The second step is testing. Ask your doctor to test your fasting insulin and your fasting glucose, and ideally your HOMA-IR score. These numbers will tell you how your body is handling insulin. They'll give you an idea of where your insulin sensitivity or resistance is at. Now, if your doctor won't test fasting insulin, because oftentimes they won't, it isn't usually covered by insurance, which is really unfortunate because it can catch insulin resistance years earlier. There is one company that has an at-home kit that's So Well Health. It's their weight biology kit. It allows you to test your fasting insulin at home, along with other key biomarkers of metabolic health. Your results are physician reviewed, and they send a report back to you within days outlining where your metabolic health is currently at and giving you some next steps you can take. So if your doctor won't run the fasting insulin test, then check out So Well Health. I'll put that link in the description box down below. This has been an amazing tool for so many of my clients. Not only does it allow you to test your insulin resistance, but you can test again in 6 months and see how you're progressing if the changes you have made are improving your insulin sensitivity. It is a great tool and the report is so beneficial. So again, I'll put that link down below. Back to what you can do if you have been diagnosed with insulin resistance or if you have a lot of these signs. Lifestyle changes are the biggest driver when it comes to reversal. Lowering carbs, especially refined carbs and sugar, is key. Building muscle with resistance training is one of the most powerful tools we have to improve insulin sensitivity. Managing stress and getting enough sleep are also critical because cortisol raises insulin just like diet does. Small changes add up. Even something as simple as walking after meals or prioritizing protein can make a big difference. And I'm going to link a video up above if you want more tips on how to reverse it, because we've only just scratched the surface here. So to wrap up, yes, insulin resistance does look different in men and women. For women, hidden signs often include PCOS, irregular cycles, stubborn weight gain, skin changes, and mood swings. For men, it's belly fat, lower testosterone, fatigue, and brain fog. And for both, you'll see cravings, energy crashes, and changes in blood pressure or cholesterol. The good news is that once you recognize these signs, you can start to take action. You can reverse insulin resistance before it turns into something more serious. Now I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. How many of these symptoms have you seen? Have you noticed the symptoms are different, maybe in your partner, the difference between men and women? Let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing from you guys and keeping the conversation going. So can't wait to read your comments. I try to respond to as many as I can, especially the first day that the video is posted. So if you're seeing this right after I've uploaded, leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.